Step 8. Forgive and be free. The moving finger writes, and having writ moves on. Nor all the piety nor wit shall lure it back to half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. These wise words of philosopher, astronomer and poet Omar Khayyam remind us of the futility of holding past events responsible for our current circumstances. The moving finger in this context may be seen as us. As time elapses and events unfold, we inevitably make mistakes and suffer injustices, but no amount of blame or guilt can turn back the passage of time in order to rectify them. One of life's greatest myths is the belief that the past is responsible for our present misfortunes. This is a defeatist attitude. Without doubt, the past does influence our psychological development, but as we gain awareness and insight into ourselves, we come to realize that the past cannot be credited for our present shortcomings without our consent. Granted, we can choose to bond ourselves to the wounds and injustices of the past and allow bitterness and resentment to erode our minds and destroy our lives. Or we can choose to turn our anger inwardly, severely berate ourselves for past transgressions, and sink into a morass of melancholy. Either way, guilt, bitterness, or resentment will surely lead to our demise. There is another option available, however. We can choose to forgive. By forgiving ourselves and others, we free up a vast amount of psychic space for inspiration, creativity, love, joy, and life's infinite possibilities to enter. The formula for the successful implementation of this process can be summed up in the following words. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. These words of the Lord's Prayer are not some pious idealism devised to produce martyrs and angels. They are designed to set you free. Forgiveness and freedom are synonymous. When we blame negative childhood experience, relationship problems, financial hardship, bereavement, or some other calamity for our present misfortunes, we surrender our power to circumstances beyond our control. Subsequently, our minds become infested with negative thoughts that give rise to life-denying chemicals in our body that induce bad feeling, depression, fragmentation, lethargy, irritability, paranoia, and bitterness. Consequently, we drink and end up back in the abreactive abyss. This whole destructive process is initiated by our refusal to let go of old wounds. Yet what we don't realise is that by hanging on to past pain, we are continuously wounding ourselves. Resentment is a covert method of self-punishment. The primary objective of forgiving others is to set yourself free. Forgiveness is not an altruistic act, it is self-serving. In extreme cases, such as abuse, where forgiveness is desirable but extremely difficult, there is an effective process that facilitates release, a process that transports you from hatred to freedom. Steve, our co-founder, initially found it impossible to forgive his stepfather for the sexual abuse he suffered as a child. With good reason, you may say, but let's remember, resentment is self-effacing. As we worked through Steve's issues, I became aware that love and hatred were fused together, as is quite normal in these cases. Survivors of sexual abuse are often reluctant to declare their love for the perpetrator as they think they will be labelled weird. How can you love someone after they did that to you, people say. After reassuring him that it was normal and permissible to love his stepfather, I recommended that he separate his stepfather's disturbing actions from the person as a whole. This enables a client to see the many different facets of a person instead of just the negative aspects. On doing this, Steve recognized the positive attributes of his stepfather and understood why he loved him as well as hated him. At this point, I felt a shift in Steve's energy. He had mellowed somewhat. His hatred had transformed into anger. For the next few weeks, we worked on processing this anger, during which time it emerged that his stepfather had also been sexually abused as a child, as is often the case with perpetrators of sexual abuse. By acknowledging the full impact of his stepfather's childhood experience, another shift took place. Steve's anger transposed into understanding and compassion. A year later, after continuous therapy, Steve visited his stepfather's grave and forgave him. This experience is best described in his own words. I immediately felt a weight had been lifted off my shoulders and knew that I could now move forward. The process of shifting from hatred to freedom will work for almost any problem. Not many people are able to make the shift in one quantum leap, however. Many don't even get as far as forgiveness, but once they attain a degree of understanding, their dilemma has a tendency to dissipate. The logical progression through hatred, anger, understanding, compassion, forgiveness, and finally, freedom normally transpires as a result of working with a competent therapist or an excellent mentor. If you recognize a need to undergo these processes, see our website for a list of approved therapists and mentors, www.altual.com. Let's now look at self-forgiveness. The benefits of understanding and forgiving others will only be felt if we are prepared to forgive ourselves too. Many people who abuse alcohol are so intent on self-recrimination that they feel that turmoil and hardship is all they deserve. Plagued with guilt, they become obsessed with judging themselves bad and unworthy and sentencing themselves to a life of misery. If you identify with this pattern of self-destruction, as I know many of you do, wake up. Recognize it as the work of the sobriety saboteurs. They are sending you a message. This message is, learn to love yourself. Guilt transpires from self-disdain, the antidote to which is self-love. Self-disdain and self-love are totally incompatible. At this time, it may be worth reminding yourself of the following words of Jesus. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. When we were inebriated, we didn't know what we were doing either. We didn't consciously set out to harm anyone. The harm we caused was usually a byproduct of an inactive conscience and suspended memory, giving rise to Dr. Jekyll turning to Mr. Hyde. For blame and punishment to be appropriate, there has to be conscious intent to violate another person in some way, and this is very rarely the case with alcoholism. So heed the words of Jesus and forgive yourself for your indiscretions. Instead of whipping yourself and becoming an unproductive member of society laden with guilt, use your past errors as feedback to improve the quality of your life in the future. To conclude this step, let's have a look at making amends. This step would be incomplete without addressing the issue of making amends. Making amends to people for past transgressions is appropriate when you feel your relationship with them is strained. If you feel it necessary and appropriate to make direct amends, then do so. It is a great house cleaning exercise that fosters humility. In the cases where you would like to make direct amends, but to do so fills you with reticence and uncertainty, then step 9 offers the perfect solution, one that will see many people benefit from your willingness to evolve into a respected, productive human being.